Okay, can we begin, please? First thing, check on your cell phones, if you would, please. Call the meeting to order. And Linelda, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner David,
Present.
Commissioner Gossett-Seidman,
Present.
Vice Mayor Bobby,
Present.
Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Attorney Tercibia,
Here.
present via Zoom. Town Manager Labadie.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, can we stand for the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? I would like to make one, and that is a brief discussion on the pod that was established here at Highland Beach. And I would like to do it as 5A under presentations. So we would do it right away. Beyond that, anybody have anything else to add? If not, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated with the one addition?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor, just say aye.
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 Thank you. As we all know, last week, we were very fortunate to get Highland Beach up and running as a point of distribution for the vaccines. And I stopped up and just observed for about an hour, hour and a half, and it was just run perfectly. No hitches. The organization of it was fantastic. And I just want to thank Marshall and Chief Hartman over there, standing way back. They just pulled a rabbit out of a hat. They just worked together. They pulled all of the resources necessary to get this thing done very, very quickly. And I also want to give a shout out to Chief Tommy at the Delray Fire, to Father Horgan for participating and allowing the use of the parking lot over at the church, to Vice Mayor Weinroth at the county level for helping to pull this together, and of course, Dr. Alonso, who allocated the terribly needed vaccine for us all. And it was just a terrific effort by everybody involved getting this thing going. Obviously, we all need more vaccines, but it proved that this can be done flawlessly. The Delray group first did it in Delray at the main fire station, then came over here and set up and executed it beautifully here in Delray, in Highland Beach. And just one thing to keep in mind, the vaccine that we have is the Moderna vaccine. Pfizer vaccine was cleared 2 weeks earlier than the vaccine that we have here in Palm Beach. And ours wasn't cleared until the 18th of December. And in less than 30 days, we're putting the needles in the arms of people in our town in less than 30 days from the time that it was cleared. I mean, that is just a monumental performance, task. It's just incredible. And my hat's off to both of you, and just thank you both very, very much for executing this thing. Terrific job. Fabulous. Just get some more of those, that's all. Okay, let's move on.
Well, could I add?
You want to add something? Go right ahead.
On the upside, it was a tremendous success as a kind of pre-planned test. And we have now proven as a town and with our resources that we can do it. And we can not only do it, we can do it effectively in our neighborhood at the church. So it was obviously well executed. The downside, my emails lit up with residents who are really frustrated because they can't get through, or they make appointments. They didn't know about the St. Lucie event. And so they're frustrated and actually in some ways angry. And I'm like, wow, hold on a second. We're breaking through barriers that we've never seen done before. But there was a limited supply. We are limited based on the doses. And that's just not the town, that's the county, and that's the state. The whole thing ripples down. So, however, you cannot say, have patience, because that's not solving their concerns. And so what the town, what all of you should know is that there is a real effort to make sure we get our share as fast as possible at the right time, and to implement the process appropriately and successfully. And so while we've proven that on a small scale, I think the appointments were done in 1 minute and 30 seconds. I mean, it was unbelievable. So the waiting list is long. The frustration will continue to build. And I think, and I keep referring everybody, and this is in our communications plan, is something I want to talk more about, but people don't know, should I get information from my condo? Should I get it from the town? Should I get it from the county? Should I wait for DeSantis to get on TV? I mean, it's all over the place. So we do need to confirm an appropriate line of messaging so that people will know at least what's going on. That's my suggestion. I'd like to talk about
It's,
more.
it's a difficult subject, the communications. I also got many. I got phone calls, I got emails, and responded obviously to all of them. The questions that I got universally were from people that had not signed up to the town's email list. Universally, that's where the problem lied. So obviously they're signed up now. Okay. Yeah, it's part of a communications plan that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But the good news in it is we are getting many more people now to sign up. So the communications plan that we'll be talking about shortly is very, very timely. In terms of getting more quantities of the vaccine, that sits with the health department. They are expanding the points of distribution, which is good for the population, but that runs contrary to our ability to get more vaccine here at our pod. So we'll just see what happens. And obviously Marshall and Chief will be in contact with the health department trying to get more here. But once they expand to Publix, which they're doing now in Palm Beach County, that's going to leave less availability probably for us unless they are able to get much larger quantities. But lately the quantities have been in the neighborhood of 4,000 a week, which is way short of what's needed. But you know, that's out of our purview. Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, let's move to presentations and proclamations. There are none. Public comments, we don't have anybody in the queue for that. Is that correct? Okay, announcements, board vacancies. Board of Adjustments and Appeals has 2 vacancies. Financial Advisory Board has 1 upcoming reappointment. Natural Resources and Preservation has 1 upcoming vacancy and 4 upcoming reappointments. And the Planning Board has 1 vacancy for an unexpired term. The meetings and events, they're published. I won't go through all of that. There's a board action report to be found on page 6. I believe that's here, basically, it's on page 7, excuse me. Basically just for our information. I don't think there's any action for us to take on it. Marshall, I'll refer to you if there is and I missed it. Okay. Open for any discussion if anybody wants to comment on it. No? Okay, we'll move on to item 8, ordinances and resolutions. And I think we have a couple of people here that wanted to comment on that. And Tyler Davis is on my list first. Tyler, if you would come up.
So for the record, you're opening public, they're actually presenters, I believe, right, Marshall? Yeah. So it's not public comments, they're open, they're presenters.
Tyler, wait a minute, we have to turn your speaker on.
Sorry, I got it now. So I'm Tyler Davis, and we're here from Global Tech just to be here as a resource in case there's any questions regarding the 10-year water supply work plan. At this point, we feel like we're ready to adopt it. But that, is your responsibility. If you have any questions or concerns, please let us know, and we'll go from there. We don't really have a presentation to give.
So we're going to hit you with our questions.
If you have any, yes.
Okay, I'll pass it through. Let's start with you, John. This is on the 10-year water supply.
Right. I guess I don't really have a question so much as my assessment of all the work that's been done, extensive, that as a water supply facility, we've had great work in the past, big investment, substantial. That's allowed us to be independent with a sole source. Yeah, we have connections now to Delray and Boca for emergency and maintenance and that sort of thing. But for the most part, we're sole source. We're independent. We're relying on our resources. And I mean, clearly, I think that's been demonstrated. Now, the population, as I read through, it's stable, and small increases here and there, and that there's minimal development going forward. It's really about less than a handful of vacant lots, and the rest are scraping and rebuilding or refurbishing. The water that is pumped is brackish. And so the systems installed for osmosis are state-of-the-art and are effective, and shows that even with brackish water, we can still deliver quality potable water while other communities are struggling. I'm saying all of this for the benefit of those who are listening and watching.
You're doing a great job.
And lastly, the tiered pricing that we've been working on for a few months, and does require a good handle of math, and I think resolved where we wanted to go. And it does support a fundamental belief that we want to conserve use. And I think we have proven that a tiered pricing structure, based again on the numbers that I saw and whatnot, has lowered usage. When that was implemented, and over time we have the numbers that prove that it lowered usage. And so, in fact, we've stepped it up in our recent agreement to go forward with this new tier approach, so that we have quality water that we are able to deliver independently of other organizations and towns, and with pricing that will preserve our supply as well as conserve the supply. So overall, it's not easy. We are thinking that we can still adjust on the fly as needed. But for now, I think we have a good overall, system, solution, group, team in place. Those are my comments.
Okay, moving on to Evelyn.
I just have one question, really. I understand that we have backup systems with agreements with both Delray and Boca, should we need them. Is there some sort of a backup that if all three of us, 3 towns, have a problem because of some major catastrophe, what would we do?
That would be a challenging question. I hope we don't have to live that. Unfortunately, if one of our major neighbors has the inability to provide their own water, they don't have enough water from their interconnects to supply the entire system. Not at least not at the pressures and the flows that they're used to. Fortunately, Highland Beach has the capability because of the size and the size of the interconnects that they can be supplied 100% just from one alone. If you ever needed to use two, you could, but they don't have that luxury. So if our backup went down, we wouldn't have an adequate backup.
Thank you.
Peggy, all yours.
I have a dozen questions, if you bear with me. Bottom of page 10, the future growth predictions, which are portrayed in the mappings a few pages down the road. I found it interesting that you have I know these weren't your maps, these are the county, but can you explain the institutional designation on the existing land use map, which is the dark blue in the center of town?
Honestly, no.
You don't
These
know?
were the
Okay.
ones provided to us. We didn't make these.
So that would be something we need to look into on our own?
That's the
Okay.
church.
Oh, okay. Well, it's missing on the next map, so that's what I didn't understand. So I'll go over these with the commission later. I understand
Nope, that's us.
it's missing on the
That's us.
2030. That's us?
It's government. yeah.
That's us.
Oh.
The blue one on page 10 or 9 is.
It's government.
That's us. Yep.
What is the government in light blue and institutional in dark blue?
I see it as green.
I'm just curious. I mean, we can go over this if this isn't your exact. I think we all in the commission need to take a hard look at the 2030 future land use map because it shows that pretty much all the wetlands currently owned by the county, which Marshall and I looked into a year ago and identified through the online servicing map, shows they're all filled in and built on. So that might be something we want to look at, first of all. And I couldn't tell the difference on the second map, the 2030, the recreational open space and the conservation. It looks like conservation is zilch. So again, we can discuss that as a commission going forward. Back to the water, if I could. Hang on. Oh, this data, I'm guessing, would be pre-COVID. So everything included here would be not counting for this situation we're in. On the bottom of top of page 11, sorry, infrastructure element, potable water. Has there been any consideration for alleged sea level rise? I say alleged because some people believe in it, some people don't. Or the influx of residents that we're currently having. It's up to like 1,500 a day into Florida, up from 1,000 a day pre-COVID. Is there any sort of a consideration of those two elements?
The influx of COVID population due to COVID is not included
Okay.
in the studies. And the population projections came from Bieber in the county. And it was, like you're saying, all pre-COVID. So
Okay, that was
has
from
not been
Coke
included.
County. And what about sea level rise? Is that factored in anywhere with regard to the water plant, the water supply?
Yeah, so I know quite a bit about the water plant, and
Right.
it is built at levels well above the 100-year flood level, which is above the projected high mean sea levels, including the highest tides and projected sea level. You're fortunate because your water is from the Biscayne Aquifer, so it's not at risk or will not be affected by sea level rise at all. Some areas are using freshwater and shallow aquifers. Those are the ones that are at risk from being contaminated by salt water. And if their process can't remove the salt, then they're at risk. Here, you don't have that risk.
We're 800 feet down in the Floridian aquifer, I thought, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. A couple more things, if you don't mind. 1 second. Skip that, you answered that. Oh, middle to bottom of page 35, if I could. There's a notation, second paragraph up, third line. The town entered into a bulk water agreement with Delray Beach effective May 27th, 1997 for a period of 25 years. Well, that would give us only one remaining year on that agreement. Where would we stand with that once that agreement, that remaining year is completed?
I don't have an answer for that. I know that you have Boca as your primary source. And maybe we should explore renewing the agreement with Delray just to make sure we're covered.
Okay, and then it says we have a similar agreement, which I understand this has been in place. I understood that for years, but we do have a similar agreement with Boca, but I don't know what the terms of that are. They're not listed here. So is that something, Marshall, we could address in the future? The outgoing 1 year remaining agreement and whatever Boca's terms are?
Sure.
Okay. Got it. And last paragraph, I found it interesting, 5% of the potable water is lost by subtracting the meter readings. I don't understand that, and I don't understand the 25% of the water lost during treatment.
Okay. Those are like guidelines that we're given. And if your water loss is beyond that, then it's indicating that you're actually losing water somehow, possibly through leaky pipes or something like that. But water meters are never 100% accurate. And the residential meters are designed so that they're going to be close to 100%, but they could be as low as 95%, and they get lower with time. And it's really a good practice to plan to replace your water meters every 10 years or so, or you'll start to lose revenue.
Do we do that? Do we replace them every 10 years? I don't think we've ever replaced ours. I'm in my house 24 years.
We replaced some.
Yes, in '09, when we did the water plane replacement on the east side of A1A, we got rid of all the old meters, put T10 meters in. So '09 is the last time we replaced water meters. And then actually, we did the condos 3 years ago. We went to the larger compound meters. So we've been staying on top of the meters.
Great. And that's something we could perhaps complete for the whole town, townhouses, single family.
Yeah, and the other thing is your meters are on a meter read system. So you're
Mhm.
able to get live data and do a good, accurate comparison. Where if you're just doing physical reads like every other month, it's hard to really tell how much your water loss is. So when I say it's a practice to do it every 10 years, that's with no supporting data. But you're able to show that your meters are doing better, and you can replace the ones that are issues and wait a little bit if everything's working well.
Okay, so we can put that on our to-do list for the commission, I guess,
monitor.
to review all meters in town would be a good idea.
So to definitely monitor them.
All right, and also, sir, you were saying, could you just restate the 5% loss is what was it? I missed.
That's just a standard rule of thumb in
An
the
industry-
industry. So if
Okay.
you're 5% loss, you're considered, or less, you're considered to be in an excellent condition.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I think I did one more thing, a couple more. Conservation, top of page 36. We promote conservation through the program, the friendly landscaping and so forth. Whereas we have some codes to this effect prior to Mr. Labadie coming in, these plans were not always fully overseen or implemented. And is this something then, I wasn't aware personally that this factored into the water situation. So is this something we should be proactive about pursuing?
Yes, and I believe we already are pursuing that.
I
right?
think we're started up.
Yes,
That's okay.
and we're trying to get the town's code in compliance with what's recommended by the state and South Florida Water Management District and part of the Florida Administrative Code currently.
Okay.
And we're doing that by actually referencing the code instead of making our own.
Okay, so Ms. Allen, I know, has been looking into some of that. All right, so this is an important factor. That was news to me. All righty, and then have we ever supplied water? This would, I guess, be for Pat, to Delray Beach or Boca, whereas we have this reciprocal arrangements. I know a couple times, I know that we've switched over to Boca in the last years.
In the past, we have helped Delray out with a little bit of water. We've never had to give Boca any water. And it's only a small amount for a small period of time. Like Tyler says, we don't have the capability of supplying their whole town, obviously.
Sure.
But when they were having problems with some of their crossover through the intercoastal, we had opened the valve for a couple of days just to get them pressure and some water. But we have reciprocated with Delray, but not with Boca.
Okay, I appreciate it. And is there a financial agreement that would, I mean, do we just do this out of the goodness of our
We
hearts?
do it as a friendly neighbor, and they do as
Okay.
well. Not every nickel gets charged for
Cool.
water, depending if, now if we go on Delray for weeks at a time, like we have when we had to do work for the elevated tank, then we'll get a bill from them. But if it's a day or two, it's kind
Okay.
of a
Good neighbor
good neighbor,
policy.
good neighbor thing.
Great, thank you so much on that. And lastly, page 37, the bottom, we say we support water reuse and alternative water resource under consideration, but we don't really have a plan for that.
That's the statement that we're kind of required to say. And all that it requires us to do is evaluate the opportunity for reclaimed water. But since you don't treat your own wastewater here and it goes to the Delray Boynton plant and they're already using it all, there's really not a valid way to supply the town with reclaimed water.
Okay, we could make the argument to say that since we do go to that plan and they do reportedly use
They're
correct reclaimed water,
using
that some
reclaimed
of
water.
our
Right. Your
Wastewater
wastewater is not just going to.
indirectly, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you very much for your help on
You're
that,
welcome.
clearing those up. That's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Tyler and Pat, I have one question. I'm not sure if it's for which one of you would answer it. Peggy got most of my questions, but one thing I want to ask is on the Boca agreement and on the Delray agreement, are those pretty standard agreements? Is there anything we have to worry about in terms of those agreements?
No,
Where
they're
they be
pretty-
unhappy, we're unhappy, anything like that?
They're pretty basic. It's so much per gallon, end of story. That's,
It's a
Look,
limited supply basis. It's an emergency
So,
only
you
type
know-
contract. We just can't shift over and just start pumping their water in. It's gotta be an emergency.
Great, no further questions. Everyone's already asked what I had to say, so.
Okay, my turn. Before I get into it, Marshall, would you be so kind to forward both the Boca and Delray agreements to the commission? That way we all have them, we can all take a look at them, okay? Briefly on page 15, section 6. It talks about in accordance with section 163.3184.4 of the Florida statutes, city staff will hereby directed to transmit the comprehensive plan, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just kind of fill me in on what that's all about?
What page was that?
Aha,
Hi, I'm the
Now we
person
got
to
the
ask that answer the question. Yes, so again, the Florida statute first and foremost requires the town to update their water supply plan. So in the Florida statute, in this particular section that's quoted here, 163.3184, there's the process for the different types of amendments to the comprehensive plan. This particular amendment to the comprehensive plan is processed through an expedited review. So what happens is this type of amendment requires a two-phase process. The first phase is a transmittal phase, and then the second phase is the adoption. So if the commission agrees to transmit this to the State Land Planning Agency, which is the Department of Economic Opportunity, it will be sent up to them for review. They have 30 days along with other reviewing agencies to give us any comments. If there's any comments, we'll address those comments, and then the amendment will come back to you for the adoption hearing, which I anticipate will be in March of this year.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's a bit of a process, but again, per statute, we follow that process.
thank you.
Okay.
Got it. Page 26, Item 4. This makes reference to reclaimed water is necessary to meet future water supply demands and the ocean outfall law. Can you explain the ocean outfall law? And I didn't know had anything to do with reclaimed water. So kind of fill me in on both of
Okay.
those, please.
Okay, this is similar to the answer before. The ocean outfall used to be a very common way for this part of the country to get rid of their wastewater at various levels of treatment. And just a quick summary, there was a move to put a deadline to stop ocean outfall.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely a good thing. And like your neighbors, Boca has an ocean outfall. Delray Boynton had an ocean outfall. Delray and Boynton, which is where the town's wastewater goes, was very quick to stop using their ocean outfall and go to deep wells. And then they use as much reclaimed water as they can. And reclaimed water is kind of, unfortunately, it's a resource that is abundant when it's raining a lot, when you don't really need it, and scarce when you do need it and it's dry. And so they have what they call 100% reuse criteria. So that means that during the dry season, all your reuse is being used. And Boynton, Delray are at that level. Boca, your neighbor, was kind of unrelated, is also reached that level as well now. So they're not using the outfall unless there's an emergency and they have to do something, like their deep wells are not working, or in Boca's case, their reclaimed water system is out of commission for some reason.
Okay, but Highland Beach,
All yours goes to Delray Boynton, and it gets reused or deep welled. So
Gotcha.
you have no outfall.
and when it comes to reclaimed water,
They're using your reclaimed water,
they are, not us.
not you.
Okay. Last one is on page 33. I don't understand the table 3. Can you explain that to me?
I don't have that table.
We've got a raw water demand here. And then finished water demand, it's a historical data.
Sorry about that. I was missing a page. Oh, this page 33, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I understand. Okay, I understand. Okay,
Yep, same one.
excellent. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so I know which table. What's your question again?
I just don't understand the table.
Okay, so your raw water is the Florida well, which is brackish, and you have a membrane treatment system. So it pushes the water at high pressure into contact with the membranes, and the fresh water that passes through is available for consumption. But the concentrated salty water that is not fit for consumption is sent out for waste. And you have, I'm not exactly sure what your percentage is, but it's going to be a certain percentage is recovered, maybe 80%, and the rest is wasted. So your raw water demand is always going to be higher than your finished water when you have a membrane system.
Why the variation then?
You'll notice that it's always higher on the raw water than on the finished water. And then the year-to-year variation is just your typical fluctuations throughout the year. Like
Oh, it is typical.
Yeah, and like here in Highland Beach, a lot of your water is for irrigation. And so if you have a drier period, you're probably going to be using more water than you would on a wetter year. So these are typical fluctuations.
But the basic difference is raw water is brackish, pre-osmosis, pre-treatment water.
Correct.
And then out of that, you pull finished water,
Correct.
and that which you
You see
cannot
what I'm
pull
talking
out.
about here on the
that's
very, you
some-
converting
That's
percentages
waste.
now? Are you looking at the percentage differences here? Yeah, it's quite a variation, isn't it? Well, yeah, I mean, the range, you just converted these. If you go from 2015 to 2019, 83%, 80%, 76, 71, 77.
If
Is
you-
that an acceptable variation?
Yes, and this is what I've learned from the guys, and I think they also stated in reports, about 25% lost to wash. So we lose about 25% getting it from a saltwater condition or practice condition to a finished water product. And that's kind of how reverse osmosis operates.
No, I'm not suggesting that 20 or 25% is an unacceptable variation, an unacceptable loss. Why the broad variation? Why do we have a range of a range of 9% from year to year? Is that acceptable, is what I'm asking?
For the purpose of this report, it's definitely acceptable.
I missed that.
If-
Would you?
I said for the purposes of this report, it's acceptable to have that. It's allowed. If we wanted to optimize our energy and water usage, then we could focus on that number. And there could be something that we need to do, like either clean a membrane or replace membranes or different things like that. And it really comes down to like a cost basis evaluation.
Okay, we're going to ask the manager about that.
And it was about 3 or 4 years ago, we replaced all the membranes. So as the membranes are newer, they're going to work better. So as they get older, as the year goes on, you're going to get less and less. And that's how that process works.
Is that what the number said?
What happened in 2018?
That I can't tell you in 2018.
Let me look into it.
Well, we won't
Couple of the
belabor it
operators.
here, but maybe we'll have a discussion later
Yeah.
on.
I can
Makes
find,
sense.
I'll find that information out for you one way or another,
Okay,
for sure.
thank you. That's all the questions I had. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I just go back to one question?
Of course.
Yes, sir. Regarding outfall pipes. Yes, sir. Do you also, just wondering, do you also consult for Delray Beach?
I have in the past, yes.
Just wonder, weren't there 2 outfall pipes in Delray Beach and they shut off one? That would be Delray/Boynton Beach plant. Wouldn't they, isn't it true they shut off one and the other one is used when there's an excess of rainfall or the locks open from Lake Okeechobee into the canals and so forth?
So one is for stormwater and the other is for wastewater. And the outfall legislation refers to wastewater. Everybody still has to process their stormwater.
Oh, I
to
didn't
the
know
ocean.
that. So
That is not-
stormwater is not covered by the state legislation mandating in 2025 they'd be shut off fully.
That's correct.
Oh, do we have a plan with Delray Beach for shutting off by 2025, which is a short 4 years away?
The stormwater or the wastewater?
The waste.
Wastewater, yes, they've already gone to deep wells, so they are not using their outfall unless
Thank
there's a
you for that
major upset.
clarification. And I thought Boca Raton's was shut off and the furthest one south was Miami.
Bocas is actually not shut off, but they only use it when they have either excessive reclaim water, like during a rainy period,
Yes.
and then again, their water is treated to reclaim water standards, which is, good enough to put on the golf courses.
Okay.
And then if they had a major upset, it's available for that. And that hasn't happened recently. I work with Boca a lot. But if something were to happen, that's available for them. And as far as I know, I believe you're correct. Miami's the one that's still actively being used on almost a constant basis.
I appreciate that. Well, that was a very clarifying answer. I appreciate that. I accidentally scuba dived into one of them almost, so that's why I sort of
Yeah.
knew about them by default. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
May I make clarification for Peggy?
Yes, ma'am.
If you look at the future land use map that you were referring to,
Yes.
What page is that on? please?
it's our page
31.
31.
31.
Yes.
Okay. if you look really closely, you will see that all along the beach, in fact, is a different color green than the recreational. So that's the conservation. It's a slight difference, and it's unfortunate that they have them so close together so that it isn't readily apparent unless you really look at it.
Got it. Thank you. Well, that's my bad eyes. I'm very farsighted.
But,
I
you
need
know,
to get a different color chart for us
it's a matter
farsighted folks.
of being able to spot distinctions, and this is a really tough one to be able to spot.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Okay, anything else of Tyler or Julia?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. All right, to follow up, I thought an excellent point that you've made, Mayor. On the ocean outfall, there's a characterization of first flush, as I've been learning from some of our citizens. And my understanding is, separate from an outfall, the storm drains that we have on A1A and others simply dump the stormwater in the intracoastal. Is that correct?
I would rather not say that.
Yes,
Not my
I'll answer yes,
expertise.
they are.
Okay, so when you're speaking about the outfall, it's not the same thing as the stormwater that's coming off our roads. That's going as a first flush into the intercoastal, which is causing problems by itself, which is something that we need to talk about in the future at some point. And I know that there's a lot of interest in the town as to how we manage not only first flush from storm drains straight to the intercoastal, but also our swales and our ability to absorb stormwater naturally. But anyways, okay, thank you very much. Then should I make a motion or do we have other?
I don't know, do we need a motion here, Marshall?
Yes.
Yep,
So I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Island Beach, adopting a 10-year water supply work plan associated to section 163.3177.
you get good at this.
But Nelda helped me.
Second, I'm not going to change that.
Seconding it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mayor, just for the record, since this is a first reading, just want to let everyone know and the people viewing, we have no public comments for this item.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, there's no consent agenda, there's no new business. No unfinished business, excuse me. Let's move on to new business. It's on page 44. That's the update on the strategic priorities plan, and I'll turn that over to Marshall. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we recall from when we approved the strategic priorities plan, that on a quarterly basis, I'd provide an update on how we're progressing through these special initiatives and projects. So kind of not exactly a quarter, but to time it. So we went ahead and got it on January. We'll come back and next quarter to give you an update, but you can see how we're progressing. You see the bold face italic is kind of giving you updates of where we are, if it's been completed or what our status is on those projects. So I'm somewhat impressed with myself and the team. We've done a pretty good job of really tackling these during COVID. This is, I don't think I reviewed it. I went through and wrote it all down and I'm like, wow, we really made a lot of progress, all things considered. And then Lois will be taking us through the communication plans next. But again, we're staying on task, staying on these priorities and projects that we identified. So we are making that progress and moving right along. So I just wanted to give everybody an update. I can answer any questions if you ask or seek further clarification on some of our progress on any of these. Otherwise, it's a receive and file type of document, but it's our quarterly update.
I just have to say, when I was reading through this, I was just very pleased. Clearly, a lot of progress is made. COVID didn't help at all. It got in the way, but you plowed through it. And just open for comments. So I guess we'll just go one by one. John?
Well, it's great. No question about it. I'm glad to see it resolved. I only have 2 points, and take it or leave it. I mean, under values, L, lead with integrity at every level. Just as an idea, would it make sense to, under A, assure fiscal responsibility and accountability with integrity at every level? In other words, combine that on A, and then for L, given we've had some question about our willingness to listen all the time to our citizens, would it make sense for L, to listen to the needs of our citizens? Just as a
Did you
thought.
pick that up when you read the communications plan?
But actually, no, I got it from some others in the community who banged me over the head about, listen. My second point is on the planned activities on the projects and initiatives list. Under town entry signs, so we have a proposal.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I'm waiting to hear more about it, only so I can add an idea about veterans.
The veterans is included in that proposal. So we got a design firm to come on board to give us a creative eye to this process. They won't be building the signs. They're not a sign manufacturing company. They're here to come to it through a design look and feel as to what would be our best options, because we haven't decided on what kind of sign we want. So without knowing that, we needed a design team to come in. We've incorporated the Veterans Memorial concept so that they can integrate that into that concept. So we have a proposal. They're going to come in, see what they can do, show us some renderings, some options. We'll bring it back to the commission, and you guys could start picking that direction. So really start kneeling down. And then it will incorporate, as you're going to start hearing, you'll hear from Lois, this concept of branding a bit. You guys had that conversation and set the tone with the Natural Resource Advisory Board on their bucket trees. We need to start having a common image, color, message through everything we do. It'll really make us look good. So right now the logo is tied through on everything. You'll notice that at the crosswalks, you'll see the truncated domes with our logo on it, the new logo on the water tower. We just want to make sure whatever we do doesn't seem awkward to how we're starting to design everything we build.
Very good. Thank you.
Evelyn?
Oh, I just want to say congratulations. In a short period of time, there's a lot that has been started and quite a bit that's been completed and under not optimum circumstances.
We got a good team.
So kudos on that. Keep up the good work.
Might be time to add more to this list, huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, if they're going through it, then obviously they need more to do.
Just write down those ideas and we'll circle back.
Peggy?
Sure, thank you. Question, what was the Milani Park February, March group meeting? Is that something involving the commission, or that's something you're spearheading?
We have not scheduled a meeting.
Okay, but that would be the whole commission, or that would be you going?
That would be the team that met
The
with
team
them
that's
last
in
time.
place.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Just curious.
Just
And,
to follow up on that, I'll give you the reason why.
Yeah, sure.
We thought that all the work that's being done now on trying to get more vaccines, setting up more distribution points, we figured we'd better hold back.
No,
Let
that's
that
cool.
run
I
its
just-
course first.
That's no problem. That's my only question. And otherwise to say, really well done, because this has just been a joy to see the town upgraded and updated and taken care of, with all the major things being looked at for the first time in a long time. Thank you, Marshall and team.
Thanks, Mayor. 2 comments, 3 comments. One, yeah, a lot was accomplished. That's great. At some point, we might want to circulate a list after and remove all the completed stuff, because sometimes it gets a little busy. Maybe not yet, but at some point, because then we can kind of figure out what really needs to be done.
Yeah, good thought.
And then under planned number 15, sponsor assigned. That's me. I'm ready, Marshall, when Ingrid's ready. I know she had a bunch of stuff she had to focus on, but when you say it's time, I'm ready to sit down with her.
Yep. So she's already started looking at that. So I'm not
Great.
saying that we haven't. I didn't really put much extra onto that just yet, but she started looking at it so we could formalize the next steps. We wanted to tie down this water supply plan. CRP is coming back to you guys probably in April for the formal rollout. So we wanted to get those things tied up so we can focus a little bit. And the right of way stuff that we're working on, she just finished that up. So we're on that. Yep.
That's it.
Well done. Well done. Okay, thank you for the update. Let's move on now to the discussion of the communications plan. That's on page 48.
So Mayor, what we have, Lois is going to give a quick presentation. I'm extremely thrilled on the quality of work that came out of this, how we really stayed on and developed this communication plan. Again, when I say the team is really accelerating and doing a great job on these special projects. And I think you're spot on. And I think there's a big conversation. Lois and I spent time talking about this afterwards as to where do we want to take this communications. That next level will involve some effort and maybe some resource commitment on the part of the commission. So while she goes through that, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind a little bit.
Lois, before you start, would you tell us who was on the committee?
Yes, absolutely. The committee, initially, it was Teresa Cuevas and myself. Teresa Cuevas and myself were the initial committee members, and we will be joined by our new Lieutenant Michael O in the future. And then depending on how we go forward, the committee will be probably expanded at some point across all the departments.
But what we're looking at here, you and Teresa.
Correct,
Well done.
with
Well
input from Marshall.
Yes.
So.
Well done.
So
Thank
great,
you.
thank
Okay,
you.
go right
Well,
ahead.
I'll be happy to walk you through it. I'm Lois Albertson, Library Director, for anyone who doesn't know. And as we discussed in response to this town strategic priority plan, Town Manager Labadie had formed a communications committee to look at developing our communications plan for the town moving forward. And Teresa and I began by looking at a number of different communication plans from different municipalities, getting input from the town manager, listening to comments that you all have made in meetings about communications, and then also drawing on our own experiences. Teresa obviously does many communications through the town manager's office. I do communications through the library. So we kind of put all of that together to create the plan that you have before you today. We first started looking at really what we thought the primary communication goals for Highland Beach. For a town like us, engaging with our residents, increasing awareness of what's going on, we really felt were the two most important things. But then also looking at, are we presenting our messages consistently, transparently? Are we building credibility with our residents? And are we also looking for all the opportunities we can find to reduce barriers and make sure that people are getting the information that's out there? So our first step after that was we took a look at where we are today. And if you'll see on page 58 of your agenda packet, in the plan, we did an inventory of all of the communications channels that the town currently has available. And you can see it's quite robust. You have print, digital, signage, you have face-to-face meetings. So for a small town, I think we have a lot of opportunities. We have Channel 99, newsletters. We had some great additions, I think, in the last year, like the manager's minute, the letters that the commissioners are writing. So we're already, I think, well on our way to improving the communications that we already have. And we looked at also some of the challenges and opportunities that we face. And I think what Commissioner Shoemaker and Mayor Hillman, what you mentioned earlier is a perfect example we have a challenge where we have a lot of residents who are not signed up for town emails. Something like this COVID vaccine is something that I think really demonstrates to people the value of signing up and receiving these town communications. I'll tell you, on Friday, we had people all day long at the library calling and coming in saying, oh, I heard the town is doing something with vaccines. What's the best way to find out when something like that happens? So, of course, we directed them, sign up for the town's email, you'll get that information. So I think that's a good example of how you see that a lot of times people don't think of signing up or being informed until it's something that directly affects them, and then they want to make sure they know. So I think that from the exercise that we found, we also have some good opportunities with making our newly redesigned website, really promoting that as a hub of information for the town. Residents can get to it no matter where they are. They don't have to be here locally. But if we push them to go to that as a source for all the information that they might need, it will become kind of the go-to place they think of. We also see a big opportunity with leveraging Channel 99. It's fairly static right now, but there's a lot of opportunity there that we'll discuss further along, but for maybe adding some pre-recorded content, live content, just to make it more useful to residents and more dynamic. So kind of our conclusion from our analysis that we did of where we are today is that we have a lot of great products, but we could benefit from formalizing those communication products and ensuring that we have consistency across everything that's going out, and also increasing our brand awareness. With the new town logo, people are getting used to seeing that and liking it. We'd like to see that every communication that goes out, that people would instantly know at a glance that this came from the town of Highland Beach. So once we looked at where we were today, we put together the strategies and actions that you see in the plan to kind of give us a roadmap to getting where we want to go. And we looked at some things that we can just improve on what we already have, like developing more formal protocols for our public and internal communications. We thought of having some style guides so that all of our communications, that they're consistent font, logo, header, so that they all look consistent no matter what department they came from. Expanding the communications committee so we have representatives from all departments, so we can all be contributing to a master calendar. So we just know that, one department might be doing something, but other departments are aware of that. Maybe we can do some cross-channel promotion. For example, the library does a monthly newsletter. We don't generally include a lot of town information, but that would be an opportunity that if I worked more closely with another department, that we might be able to include information there in our library newsletter, because we may be reaching a different audience than some of the other people that are signed up for maybe just utilities information. So we looked at that, and we also looked at increasing our communication capacity. And I think this goes to what Marshall mentioned earlier about looking to see what we can do with our current staffing versus where we might want to consider increasing resources, so more dedicated staff in the future. With the staff we have now, I think we can improve on what we currently have for our communications. But if you want to really increase the volume of the communications that are going out, doing things like pre-recorded and live content for Channel 99, that's where I think we would need to have a conversation about how much of a commitment of resources you all might be interested in making now or in the future. I know at the library where we've started doing some virtual programming, I'll tell you, it is time consuming, and to get it to a professional quality level that you would want if you were broadcasting it, again, you need to have somebody with the right skill set and the right equipment. I found a number of the municipalities that I looked at that had teams of people. Some of them had whole, a municipality might have their own broadcast studio where they're interviewing staff and elected officials, and they're doing all of this content, but they had teams of people that did it. It wasn't just a side job for someone who already has another set of responsibilities. So that's just something that I think is a good consideration for the commission to think about. We also looked at our community partners, strengthening our relationships of how we could leverage better communication through the hotel, the church. I know the church has a bulletin. Are there opportunities there that we could be putting information in with them? Could we have some kind of a packet for potential new residents, maybe at the real estate office? So there are a lot of opportunities out there with our local partners. We just need to look at those and see what might be appropriate for us. And also just increasing engagement with residents at things like community events, Spring Fling, when we can have community events again. But it's a great chance for residents to be able to interact with you all, interact with us, chance for us to collect signups for email lists. So a lot of opportunities there. And then also as a subset that we'll be working on when we have the new lieutenant with us on the committee is looking at a whole separate plan in addition to this for crisis communication. I'm sure that police and fire departments already have a lot of things they've established, but incorporating that into the overall town plan, which will just all help that ensure that we're all on the same page. Everybody knows who's doing what. We're not sending anything out at cross purposes. So I think we really do have a lot of opportunities. And of course, with that comes along is looking at ways of measuring what we are doing and see as we're implementing new things, are they effective? Are we getting more people signed up for the email lists? How is our website doing? Are we getting our people actually downloading documents? Are they participating? If we do a survey, what kind of responses are we getting? What kind of rates? So there are a lot of analytics and also anecdotal information of how we're doing that I think we can use to measure the effectiveness of how we choose to proceed with the plan. And that's kind of how we got started here. We left it as we thought probably every 3 years be an opportunity to review and update the plan as we see obviously new communications tools, technologies will be available. The town will have new priorities, new initiatives. So we thought we conceived it as kind of a living plan that we'll be working on, updating, adding to over time. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
First of all, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's do this one in reverse. We'll start with Peggy.
Reverse would be starting with you.
Okay, I'll go first.
Oh, boy.
I'd be happy to go
But I'll
first.
start in the middle if you wish.
Mayor, if you want to
I've
be
done-
last, I'm happy to start too.
To start with, I see you tried to do some form of consumer segmentation here. And so you have, people that are interested, people that are passive, but we really need to do a more detailed segmentation. And when I say more detailed, it's one of these things where there are a significant number of people out there that just don't care, period. So wipe it off. And it's probably the 80-20 rule. It's probably 20% out there, care less. We also have to do some very serious thinking about what are the important communications that need to get to our residents, who are our consumers. And I think we have to do away with those things that are not that important because we can't do everything here. And you've done a marvelous job laying everything out, but you've got to focus more. So I think once we focus more, we can then start to put the communication tools behind the items that we're really focused on. In 2 years from now, maybe we start adding some of the other items to it. Okay? I think we have all the delivery tools that are necessary, and you've articulated them well. But you need to prioritize them once we know who the target audience is and we know what the key elements that we want to communicate are. Once you have that set, then the delivery mechanisms will fall in line. Follow me? Okay. In terms of tying in all of the departments, absolutely 100%. And they all have to be delivering the messages in the same visual manner. For example, and I'm not picking on you here because you know I love everything you do. But what you deliver every month is not in keeping with the appearance that you're going to be looking for down the road.
Correct.
And you know that. Okay. So that has to change dramatically. The communications that are going to go out in the bi-monthly water bills are going to have to change because that's not carrying the message that we're going to want to carry in terms of the visuals of our brand. So everything here is going to have to change and everybody's going to have to become a part of it. We have, I forgot what it is, our unique sense of place. I have no idea where that came from. I don't like it at all. Sorry. I don't know what's unique about it. I don't think it's catchy. I think we need to come up with something else. All due respect. So I think we need to work on something else. Now, maybe I'm outvoted. Maybe everybody else here loves it. So if everybody else loves it and it works for everyone else, then that's what we'll use. But whatever it is, whatever our little slogan is, that's what we're going to be communicating. So I think we have a great start here, a great start. I also agree with you that if we want to do this in a broad, professional fashion, it's beyond what our current staff is capable of doing. But there are agencies out there. We don't have to, I don't think we should be looking at hiring somebody. I think we should be looking for an agency. Could be an advertising agency, could be a PR agency, could be a communications company. They're there. They can be brought in, probably less costly than what a full-time hire would be. But I don't think dollars and cents is the key here. I think getting the proper support organization here. If we were to go in that route, you have a full organization that has the capability of all the things that you're mentioning here. If you bring in an individual, that person has to reach out to try to get all of these different expertise. That's what an agency has. So I think we should start investigating that once we've defined what it is we really want to accomplish year one. So I think we have to look at segments in terms of time of what we need to accomplish. If our needs the first year aren't that great, maybe we look at hiring an agency the second year. If the first year they are great enough, then we go to look for an agency. And then once we look, we get a quote, then we know how much money we have to talk about. We bring it back to the commission, say, here's what it's going to cost. Here's what we think we are able to accomplish. Then we'll make a decision as a group whether it's worth that investment or not. And I kind of have a guess as to what it'll be, and I kind of think that this commission would support it, okay? Because what you're setting up makes sense, okay? But it goes to consumer segmentation, okay? Against that consumer segments that we're going to try to impact on year one, what are the things that we're going to do? What are the tools that we're going to use? Who are we going to use to help us do it? What's it going to cost? And you've got a lot of it here already. Okay,
Great, thank you.
great start.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I like this reverse order because you got 90% of what I was going to say. And you said it way better than I was going to say it.
Oh, okay.
No.
On to
I
you,
just have
Peg.
one or two quick little things. In terms of content, and the mayor said this, I always talk about necessity versus luxury. And I always tell my kids at home when they want something, is that a necessity or is that a luxury? In terms of content, same sort of thing. Focus on necessity content and let's get the necessary content out as wide as possible to the point where residents can't possibly miss it, and take the luxury content and don't focus on it for now. That's my only opinion on that. And then in terms of outsourcing, that's exactly what I was talking about, or I was going to mention, which is, doesn't have to just be an agency. It could be Fiverr, FIVR, or other independent contractors. I mean, I found some amazing contractors recently that will do advertising stuff, podcast stuff, all sorts of content for next to nothing in terms of costs. So you're right. It's a lot of time and it's a lot of effort to produce anything, but the outsourcing is the reason why we have so much deflation.
Right.
It's just like the stuff becomes almost free.
Thank you. Okay. I have some interesting things to point out, if that's a help. First of all, our email reaches 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 8, depending on your stats, residents. So we're missing 80, 90% of our town with emails. So I'm just, is the Highlander coming up, Marshall? I think we still need a Highlander twice a year.
Yes, we're working on the Highlander, and I think this really gets back to the spirit of what Lois and I had that conversation. And please don't take this. I think print media is dead, to be honest with you, because by the time we put content in it, it's so old. And then to mail it, it's really expensive. But we're getting it. I'm not trying to say, I'm just saying
No, I
as a
know.
long-term means to do it. Yes, we're working on that. But every time we go to start working on that, we have a vaccine, or, I mean, this is kind of a weird, atypical year. I hope this becomes atypical. I don't want this to be the norm.
Right.
But every time we work on something and we get ready to put in content, it's gone. It's past. It's yesterday. It's not even yesterday's news. By the time we get the Highlander out, it's going to look months old. So we got to have more effective means to do the print media. So we're going to send it out. We're going to send out a postcard. Postcard's going out, just let everyone knowing. Teresa will open through the blinds and give me a sign with the number of days. I'm thinking in the next couple of days, we're sending out a very simplistic, I'm looking at her hands. I can't see them. She's in the dark back there. She's in a dark room.
A couple of days is accurate.
A couple of days is we're going to get a postcard out that's basically to tell people to sign up for our email list. We have, I mean, what we've learned with this vaccine too is, you know, if they're not taking phone calls, they're not going to send you something in the mail. It's going to be the way that things are moving now. You have to participate on this. I know there are people have made statements that, oh, if you give them your email, people give their email out to anybody and everybody. We're asking you to give it to your community, your town, to get emergency. But yes, the Highlander's coming out, and we're hoping, and that's going to be a main theme in there, is catch on to this, because by the time I write the Highlander and say, hey, this is what's new and best COVID vaccine, by the time it gets in their mailbox, it'll probably be 2 weeks, because mail is really slow right now, 2.5 weeks. And what I said there is almost irrelevant. So we're having a hard time with good content that lasts time, because this Highlander is basically a 6-month document. So it's mostly phone numbers, who's your commissioner, how to get a hold of the commissioner, you know, how do you get a hold of the police department on non-emergencies? Don't forget about your library. So the Highlander is going to be more of a static rather than a dynamic document. It's just going to, things that hold over time, phone numbers, information. But yeah, it's coming, and I apologize. I know you've been asking for it. We get closer than like last week, it's COVID, where that's all of our heads are at. So we're getting that out here. Hopefully in the next week, we'll have a Highlander proof and ready. Here, back to what Lois and I were talking about. Well, we don't have the graphic artists and the materials to put it together. So when we put it together, I don't want to say it doesn't look that good. It just doesn't look that good. That's just my personal opinion. The content's good. The team creates awesome content. Okay. So,
Okay,
yeah.
then here's my question. Could we rethink that? Maybe the format is wrong, but I'm telling you, during the election, I made phone calls to residents, 31 pages of phone calls. And I would say 4 out of 10 people don't have a computer, don't have an iPhone, don't get out of bed, don't leave the house. We have a good portion of residents who still rely on the US mail. We are an elderly population, to some degree. We're not reaching those people for 2 years now. And I'm just saying then maybe if the Highlander doesn't work in its format, they say, well, I don't hear anything from the town anymore. I don't know, I don't have any connection. Well, do you have a computer? No, I'm bedridden. I mean, we still need to reach those people. They still rely on the US mail. Maybe if the Highlander format doesn't work, we could take our commission letter and insert a second page, maybe monthly or bi-monthly, just a letter then. Here's our latest updates. Here's the sewer studies finished. Maybe the mayor wants to write it every month. The sewer studies finished, this is finished, and just give them a monthly or bi-monthly letter update. Yes, sir.
I got
Yes,
an
ma'am.
idea.
Yes.
We
We
could
could do
insert
something.
Marshall's monthly into
There
the
you go.
letters that we send from the commission.
There
Just put
you
it
go.
right in the envelope.
Could we do a monthly letter or bi-monthly? That's,
Yeah.
we still need to reach
Because
those
we're
folks.
doing bi-monthly
Yes, sir.
letters. They're not going to cost us anything to just insert them.
There you go. And then, so it doesn't, I get what you're saying, Marshall, I do. If I want to email my classmates or my roommates or whatever, or they're on the email. St. Lucy's has a great email system. I know that both political parties in town have one. I know the 2 heads of them locally.
We got
Maybe they can help out. But until we get to that place and our population ages and becomes a population with iPhones and computers, we still need to reach those folks. So that would be a great
Okay.
thing, Mayor.
Okay.
And
we
so
got-
maybe the Highlander needs to take, but we need to reach them. And if I could tell you, I've found some interesting things just lately when I did some research for someone. If I could just tell you this demographics I did from a study. Of our population, English is the first language for 90%. German is next with almost 4%, first language. Spanish, 2%, French, 2%, Yiddish, 1.8%. We have a high population of Austrians. We're 4% Austrian. It's just interesting. Russians were 11%. So we have a diverse community. I think that's important. Unfortunately, hopefully it's not trickling down that there's some sort of question about government as an institution, which is a national and perhaps statewide feel among people. I'm hoping that that doesn't trickle down to us locally, because I think we're 5 of us and Marshall and his team are working hard, but I'm hoping we don't have to overcome that lack of trust factor in government. Couple more things. When we do publications, if we could consider for us farsighted people and the older folks, a black print, an easy to read typeface, and maybe a large font size. Maybe go to a 14, make sure it's not light gray. And a couple more things. One second, sorry. Would we be interested in doing a survey? Just a survey, not about construction, just a survey in one of these letters in the next year. What do you, maybe when COVID is over, what do you consider a priority or a need, or what would be your vision for town? Maybe we could ask the folks what the residents, and those who are interested can send it back, and those who aren't can toss it. It's just another idea. Oh, do we actually, Marshall, on the bottom of 57, page 57, number and tone of media mentions and articles, does anyone actually track that? I mean, we have Coastal Star and its monthly coverage and an occasional Post or Sun Sentinel reference, but Channel 5 now and then, but does anyone track that with the town?
We could keep
I
track of the
missed
number.
what you were referring to on 57? I missed it.
Sorry, page 57, third line from the bottom, number and tone of media mentions and articles. I just wondered if anyone actually tracks it.
I don't think we do, but that's a good way to do it
currently,
is to
but I
track
thought
it.
that was something interesting to see.
Yeah, it
particularly
would
when
be
you
great.
think back to items like a referendum
Oh, yeah.
item, to
I
see
know.
what kind of coverage is out there.
Because journalists keep those clip files, even today, they keep a paper version because who knows about your cloud disappearing one day.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a good point and something that you can easily Google, of course, by just Highland Beach, but, and then, oh, last but not least, and Doug brought this up in past, could we provide these manager minutes in a printed form to the condo boards and let them put them in the lobby,
No
post them
problem.
on the bulletin board? That, I mean, for you all in
Sure.
condos, that's just a great avenue. And provide them to the presidents, HOA presidents.
Easy enough to do.
Okay, and cheaper. All right, that's it for
Got that.
me, and unbelievably beautiful, well-crafted and thorough.
Thank you very much.
No typos. Really amazing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Evelyn?
Yeah, one of the things I also noted was that most condos have a contact point, whether it's through their management office or through their board of directors, that if we could get the information to them, they will forward it out to their residents. Sometimes printed form, but more often than not, email. And you're right, there are a lot of people who do not have an online presence one way or another. And we still have to take them into consideration at this point. Down the line, it probably won't be as much, but you need to take care of them now. One of the messages I think that is important to get out is encouraging people to use our beautiful new street crossings.
Push
and
the
to
button.
push the button. Because I can't tell you how many times people, they're crossing at the crosswalk, but they didn't push the button.
Yes.
So,
I see it also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or they take the flag and cross, but they don't push the button.
you know, and it's pushing the button to get that flashing light that gets a driver's attention. Because we do have an aging population and our reaction times are not what we might like them to be. And sometimes you do see somebody starting to cross, but by the time what you see gets to your brain, you're already halfway through the crosswalk. So the flashing light, you can see from further back, you've got a little bit more time to react appropriately. Yeah, I also think that you're right. We need to send out things and do it so that it catches people's attention. I don't know how many 2 or 3 or 4 page letters people are actually going to sit down and read, to be honest. But we have to make it worth people's while to sign up to get information. So maybe we could have a list of people who want something written as opposed to an email. So we know we're not missing the people who want to get a letter in the mail. But every bullet point has to be just that, a bullet point. I think part of what we can use the Highlander for is the right static information, how to contact this one, who's on the commission, encouraging people to sign up and get involved for advisory boards. But we could also have human interest articles in there that don't depend on time.
Right.
So you're not sending out something that's old news at that point. And it encouraged them to sign up for current news so that we can send out something that happens quickly. So this is current, this is what's happening. Because you're right, a lot of people did not get information about the availability of the COVID vaccines. Now, as it turns out, you had 1.5 minutes to get in. And actually wasn't just getting in, it was getting in and entering the information, which was the problem.
We heard that from several people. They got in, but they didn't get completed.
Well, I was doing it for a woman in my building who has no email, who has nothing, and I got in, but by the time I got her information, entered, it was too late. But yeah, we have to, and this is a wonderful way to start. And yeah, maybe we can do a little bit of combining of the Highlander in with the library bulletin that goes out, so that it's not, I don't want them to completely overlap, but maybe they could refer to each other. Or we have information on this, and this is where you go to find it. So that you're pointing people in a direction. But I think you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, one other thing, they're right. We have to outside source it, because your initial startup is going to take a lot of man time. And if you hire somebody for it, you're going to find that you're going to have to let them go once your initial projects are set up, and then you can edit as you go along, but then you don't need somebody full-time to do that. And we can't hire somebody who has multiple disciplines, but an agency would have people who could cover that need for us.
Well, I'm sorry we ran out of time, John.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. Actually, I was intrigued by this. I think there was a comprehensive effort made to the level of a town the size of Boca or bigger. So how could I add value in all of this? And I challenged myself, and I thought about a sense of place, a unique sense of place. And I have seen that in myself as kind of a subtitle to a slogan, not the slogan itself. So I agree in that way that we really need to think about how we brand ourselves and what our tagline should be. My first thought was identifying our audiences, and we have more than one. Clearly, we have those that are over 65. Half the town is over 65 years of age. But it'd be interesting to find out what percentage of those are literally, homebound. And then we have those that are much younger. So when you know the audiences, then you have to develop the messages. What are the key messages you want to send? Then I said to myself, okay, how can I'll get more specific rather than just generalize and give, intentions and all that. I wanted to come up with and focus on the tools. So I said to myself, how can you reach these people? And I talked to a few that literally are homebound. They haven't been out for like months from their condo. These are little condos. And they might go out occasionally, because of a doctor, a dentist in particular, once in the last 9 months. And they don't have a computer, but what they do have, and what I think everybody has, is a TV. So I think we really should think twice, 3 times about how to leverage the TV, our Channel 99. Right now, the only time I think people will go to the TV is when we have a town meeting. And maybe they might hear of an advisory board meeting and go to the TV, but that's less likely. So going to the TV, we need to drive that, I think. And I think you can do that by expanding it. And it doesn't, I realize, believe me, how important skills are in developing a professional broadcast program and all of that, believe me. In fact, my son-in-law is a general manager for Fox stations in both Miami and Boston. So I get it.
Oh, we could bring him on board.
So I said to myself, okay, I tried to come up with 10 ways to think about. So I brainstormed. So some of this, throw it out. But I'm going to just brainstorm with you and just share. The TV is number one. And one of the things you can do is ask people to generate input pictures. I know Commissioner Garza-Saiban talks about pictures all of the time of our beaches and our community. We could post, if we could tell the community, you got pictures, send them to us, we'll post them. I guarantee you there'll be interest in having their pictures, everybody, that's what Facebook's all about. That's what, Instagram's all about. That's one way of getting people to go to Channel 99. The website, to me, is the second most important thing that we do in communications. And in the website, it's done well. We've recently done some work on it. I think it's outstanding. But I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. The people have been asking me, what's going on with the vaccinations? How come nobody's telling me anything? Then first thing is, they didn't register, number one. Oh, do you have your email with the town? No. Okay. Did you register online? No. From Representative Weinroth and what he's trying to do. So the website can, just like with St. Lucie Church, which blew me away, they have a great app. Should we have an app? And should we use the phone as a way of reaching out to our community? If you go to the St. Lucie app, which is, I think it's My Parish on the App Store, and you can get all the Catholic churches and, you can see the app. It's not complicated, but it's nice. And it constantly updates what's happening this week, this Sunday, this Monday, this holiday. It's all there. We could do the same thing so that people know with their app on their phone, because besides the TV, what they all have is a phone, and they all have a cell phone. I mean, I haven't found one that doesn't. So having an app on that phone would be a great way to connect them to the TV as well. The other element is veterans. How veterans also have so many issues with Agent Orange and so forth. They even have more problems as a group, but they have phones and they have the VA. A lot of them didn't realize the VA is doing vaccinations. So we could post a lot of that information, not only on the website, but we could drive it to an app and drive it to their phone, as well as alerts that we could send out that we're doing right now with alerts on the police department. Also, you could invite some speakers to give a speech on TV. I'm sure they'll prepare and add interest and another tagline for driving people to the, so there's all kinds of ways to drive to the TV and connect that to the phone and use an app. Maybe that requires and that an agency, an outside service would help us develop an inexpensive but real app that would help us. Okay. How do we broadcast alerts now? How can we leverage that in terms of the vaccinations and what's happening and where it's happening and who can go there and what they need to do to sign up? Fifth one, I wrote down the library. I said, the library to me, in many ways, like many other towns all across the US, they have senior centers. Oh my goodness, the library really is, for the most part, a senior center, as well as being a full-line library. So therefore, what more can we do as a senior center to communicate with our residents? That can be done in a number of ways. One is they come now to use the computer, right?
Right. We don't have, I will tell you, I can see a big difference in how connected our residents are now as opposed to about 5.5 years ago when I started working here. We have very few people actually coming to use the computers now compared to where it is, because they all have their own phones. No one has a printer. They come to print, but they all have their own devices.
So then we can advertise printing, but also, since most of us already have it, there may be a few that, why couldn't we have a loaner program for a laptop or a computer, a very inexpensive one that we could hand out to, just like a book, hand out to those residents who don't have a computer that are desperate and need something. And just maybe a little guidance, training. And I don't think you need more than, I don't know, half a dozen to loan as loaners. Again, it's an idea.
We actually have 6 laptops that the Friends of the Library purchased for us to use for the computer classes that we gave before COVID to people to come into the library and have a hands-on computer class.
Or if we could loan the computer and have a Girl Scout, Boy Scout take it to an elderly person and sit down and show them, you hit these 3 buttons and that'll give you everything you need to know. I don't know. There's something to brainstorm a bit on. The other thing is corporate sponsors. I mean, again, as I look at St. Lucie Church, who I have some respect for, they have corporate sponsors. They're always advertising on their newsletter, and it helps offset the expenses. Is there any effort here to get corporate sponsors for our library and the communications that we send out? And can we even do that? I don't know. I'm just tossing it out. The other thing is, I don't want to talk too much about the whole real estate world, but it seems like if there's one career that is all over this town, it's the real estate world. What can we do to connect with the real estate world? And I think, Commissioner David, I think you made up a good point about how we cooperate with the condos. And I know that the mayor has, long before when COVID came along, we wanted to and had an intention to meet with the condo associations and the management teams. Now, the service companies of the condos are the ones that get the information and they do the mailing or whatever. I think, though, the problem has been that the condo manager, the service manager of each of the condos is getting all the input on what's happening and where's it, and she's turning or he's turning to the service company to figure out what's going on. And I'm saying, go to the website. Coastal Star. I have been saving every article about Highland Beach. And I'm wondering, that's another source for TV or for whatever. Pull out the articles about Highland Beach that's in the Coastal Star. You can have historical and current and put them on the TV. And find other ways with Coastal Star and how we could, partner with them. Okay, I just wanted to just give some ideas. I think you've done a great job. I think the biggest single problem I saw with the plan is that it's so much like a city of millions that maybe focus and priorities do need to be established to make it more doable, because you're trying to do too much here, especially if you want a quality effort. And at the same time, not hiring all these additional resources. I hope that was helpful, but I applaud your effort. Thank you very much, sir.
Mayor, may I add just one short thing to what John said? I actually think that was a really good idea about text messages and everybody having phones. So we could look into services like Twilio, where you can send out article links, whatever you want to publish via text message. And then when they open the text and hit the link, there's whatever you want them to see that would normally be on a computer.
If I could add on something too. Years ago, our street, we linked up almost everyone living there on a group text. And when we have an issue, an outage, someone texts the whole group. And so if other subdivisions and condos do that, maybe we could apply that, sort of group them all together. It's been very useful, whether it's a lost kid or cat or outage, or is the power back on after a hurricane, everyone knows.
Yep. I want to talk about focus. You're going to get tons and tons and tons of ideas. You just started getting a bunch of them here. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a bad idea that you heard here. You heard one right over here. You heard a bunch of them there. Your role is going to be sifting through them and leaving almost all of them on the table. It's going to be very hard. Okay. It's also going to be focusing on the consumer segments that you're going to go after, which means you're going to have to leave consumer segments for the following year or the year after that. We've talked about the older population. My associate here, very concerned about the population that doesn't have computers, doesn't leave their homes very often. And it's real, and our heart goes out to them. You're going to have to decide that maybe you're not going to try to communicate to them at the beginning and leave them behind. Those are hard decisions. because you can't do everything for everybody. And if you try to do it, you're going to fail. So focus, focus, focus really, really hard. But those decisions are going to be the ones that are going to make this work or it's going to fail. Because you'll end up not putting your resources against your true targets that you set.
I think an opportunity that we might see with that particular situation where somebody mentioned about reaching out more to the condos that have a manager that could get communication, perhaps we could work with some of the condos or the associations to see if they've identified people in their communities that they know are homebound or don't have computers, and they could help
Okay,
disseminate.
I'm going to interrupt you, and I apologize up front. Have you ever heard the expression of the low-hanging fruit?
Yes.
If you want to be guaranteed success at the beginning, go after the low-hanging fruit. That's what consulting companies do all the time. They go after the low-hanging fruit, prove success. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. But right away, you tried to find another way to reach that older population. I'm not telling you not to do that. The older population is real. They're out there. They are a real percentage. And I know some of them. And I help the ones that I know. But if you do that, you're taking time and energy and financial investment away from another group, another segment. So you got to be very careful on which segments you go after and which resources you employ against them. That's all I'm telling you. But whatever you do, it's focus, focus, focus. And whatever you select, put all your resources against it because you have to be successful. You understand what I'm telling you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I wondered if it'd be a help to have us while we're here, perhaps select what we all think would be a good priority in terms of, or do you want to leave that to Lois, Marshall?
I would rather leave that to Lois and
Okay.
her group.
Okay, just thought I'd throw it out as an idea.
Because, and the only reason I'm saying that is we probably have individually different thoughts. But I don't think I would want to steer her.
Okay. No
They
worries.
put a lot of work in at this point, and we're still going to have an opportunity to say yes or no. Okay, so let's let her do her thing, and if we don't like what comes back, we'll have the opportunity. Fair enough? Okay. Anybody have any other comments before we move on? But just put that big word focus on your desk. Think about it all the time. That is the key to success of marketing, period. People that don't focus don't win. Brands that don't stay focused disappear. Brands that do stay focused and stay honest to their brand, those are the brands that make it, and they stand the test of time.
Is that what challenges the public sector then? Because we have to represent everyone?
You are now a marketer, and you're going to represent everyone eventually, but not everyone day one. You're going to get to everybody, not at the beginning. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, let's move on to, invasive species. This is all you. Thank you. And thank you for the photos and the education. When I went through this, I learned a lot. Well done.
No problem. Well,
All
it
yours, Peg.
came from experience because 24 years ago, there was a Schefflera tree on most light poles on the side streets.
Yeah.
And Pat Roman, when FP&L declined to remove one that had actually grown into their wires, Pat Roman took it upon himself to send his guys out and they removed it. It had intruded into the pipes of neighbors and wires. So anyway, after the last meeting, I went home and I thought, well, we have time until the sewer and wastewater pipes are repaired to hopefully ID and remove these plants, trees that I presented last time as the ones likely infiltrating pipes, breaking them and causing breakages. We don't want to repair the pipes and then leave the trees that are making the problem in the first place. So I went out and I drove A1A and all side streets. And lo and behold, that first one is on the north end of Intracoastal, across from former Vice Mayor John Rand's house. And he'd actually mentioned it months ago, and I really didn't look at it. You cannot see the street light beyond the top of the tree at night. It is dark. Now, there's one across from Greg's house. It's the next Bellito Drive electric pole. I don't even know if there's a street light on that pole. There should be, because that's an extremely dark corner, but I couldn't tell. And if it is a street lighted,
Could be buried right in
yes, sir,
there.
and it's out. So those were two. Then I found this amazing online picture of the tree taking over the home. I just thought I'd throw in for, here we go, for posterity, that's what happens when you don't clip it. They're native to Australia or something, I had read that. I'll jump back because the first page wasn't very clear, but the Herald had listed the 8 or 10 most common invasive species that we should not be permitting to grow. Norfolk pine, snake plant, which is also called mother-in-law's tongue, not a very kindly name. The oyster plant or boat lily, Mexican petunias, which I have in my yard, I guess I'll have to pull. The Schefflera, which is that tree there. The lantana, there's two types. There's an invasive and a native, and the invasive can spread and take over. The sword fern, I didn't even know about that, and the ficus. Most people are removing ficus hedges because of the white fly, but there are still ficus throughout town. They, like the Schefflera, have a long-reaching root. I will tell you, when I was in tennis, my next door neighbor's Schefflera tree, which was huge, like bigger than that, its roots grew under the street and came up through the bathroom sink of another neighbor across the street. I'm not making this up. That's how I knew about it. So if we could perhaps delegate identification of these to our Natural Resources Board, they're very competent and engaged and bright people, and perhaps assign them, as we're supposed to do to our boards, to assign them projects. They would have between now and the end of the repairing of the sewer pipes to ID the plantings that are perhaps causing problems and have them removed. And Marshall might know, but there would be some question. The easement would not be a problem to access, I don't think, logistically or legally. If it's on someone's private property, I don't think we have, we have Glenn here, if he's listening. I don't think we have access to someone's private property, but we do on those at the light poles and on the, I believe, on the 17 feet of either side of A1A, and then on the easement on the side streets. Just out of deference to their own private homes, they should want these removed because they could be infiltrating their own pipes and their wires.
Well, let's ask Glenn. Glenn?
Okay.
Glenn? We have a question for you. Yeah.
Is he reading War and Peace?
I got you reading somebody else's brief, I guess. Peggy was going through these
Through the tree.
these plants that are now huge trees. And the question becomes, if it's on private property, can we do one of two things? Either go to the homeowner and have them remove it, or plan B, go to the homeowner and tell them we're going to remove it.
Well, you're only going to be going on private property, either with the permission.
We're not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Still not coming through.
How's that?
A little better.
Is that better?
Perfect.
So going on private property is always a questionable tactic. Generally, you're not going to go on private property unless there's a code violation, and then you're going to give the person notice of what code's being violated. So, certainly if you want to have an informal conversation with the homeowner and say, we'd like you to remove or trim this tree, that's fine. But in terms of compelling them to remove or trim the tree, there's got to be a code that's violated, and then they need the typical due process of a hearing to determine whether they violate the code.
This is an invasive species. That help in any way? I don't think we have a code to go back, to fall back on, do we?
Well,
Well, there's state law.
right.
Pardon, wait a minute. Peggy, state law?
Yes, sir, there's a state law that ID'd these plants in 1997 and sought removal by compliance. But also the key for Glenn would be if they're on utility easements, I believe we have full right to access that easement as Pat Roman did in the past for our street.
Did you hear what Peggy just said?
Yeah, under state law, if something's an invasive species, then we'd have to look at our code, and I don't have it in front of me. We have to look at our code to see if our code regulates invasive species and gives us the authority to remove or request that the homeowner remove the invasive species. So we can certainly look into what's available to us. If it's in a utility right of way, then we have to coordinate perhaps with the utility. So it's not as simple as simply saying you have an invasive species, we're going to go on your property and remove those trees. And probably the closest example is, if you may remember, if you go to Gulfstream and you ride along A1A, it is full of the invasive species that form the canopy. And the state wanted to remove those invasive species, and the town of Gulfstream fought back and said for the beauty of those trees, they need to remain. So it's not a simple process to just remove a tree from somebody's private property.
Glenn, did you see the photos I posted? And they're on the agenda there, page 67, 66.
Yeah, and I was watching the photos that you had posted.
Yes, they're literally blocking the light from reaching the street, and they're growing into the street light and into the wires.
And again, FP&L generally has a program where, because if it's in their easement, they can trim back so that their wires aren't being impacted. So we can certainly contact FP&L, and I think you've all seen the FP&L trucks or their subcontractor they use to come and trim back so they're not impacting their wires or their pole. But as far as I know, FP&L will not just completely remove a tree either. They'll just trim it back.
Yes, what happened in the past is they removed the branches down to about 8 foot, left an 8 foot trunk. And then Pat Roman and his crew came in and removed the rest of the trunk.
Okay, so we know what to do then. We'll check our ordinances and we'll
Great.
give FP&L a call, let them know about this.
Great. And
Okay.
then if we could maybe delegate, that's my idea. And again, I have ideas, but I would want everyone's input to see how you'd like to proceed. If you'd like to give it to the Natural Resources Board, they could perhaps identify other trees. I did drive around. I saw one was removed last year on Bel Air Drive. There were 2 blocking the street light on Russell, and maybe 1.5 on Highland Beach Drive. In addition, 1 on Tranquility North. Those are just the ones I saw. I didn't even log the ones on A1A. There are quite a number of them blocking streetlights. But
Yeah.
those that are Scheffler and invasive, I just think would be great to remove them before they grow back into our relined sewer system.
I agree, falls right into their purview.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
Anybody have any other comments?
Yeah, I think also as part of that, since we can't really force people to remove most of them, if it's on a telephone pole or utility pole or with the wires, that's a completely different issue. And yes, I believe you do have to go through FPL because there are a limited number of companies that are allowed to deal with things that are around the wires. You can't just go and trim it yourself. But as far as controlling it in the future, I think whenever somebody does construction and presents us with a plan, maybe we tell them you can't use this kind of plant, that we don't want invasive
For
species.
sure.
We want things, so go, it's hard to go back and fix what's already there. It's much easier to fix it going forward.
All right, I think if I can add, let's make sure that the planning board knows about that because they're the ones that are approving these things. And I think Ingrid just found something. We may have an answer here.
Well, in anticipation of this item, I went ahead and checked, did a code search of the word invasive. And basically, there's 3 references in the code. The one I think that's not so much relevant, but I think it's worth noting, it's section 28-7E as in Edward. There's a reference to the hand removal of an invasive species. However, this particular section really pertains to, and I have it here, it pertains to a required management plan. So it basically, it's applicable if you have an area of preserved plant communities. And to me, that's an area like a beach dune. These are plant communities that you don't irrigate, you don't mow them, you don't prune them, they just are what they are. If that area is more than 1/2 acre, then the code requires you to do this required management plan, and you have to show how you're going to hand remove, invasive species. So that's where invasive species is referenced. Again, that's not going to capture, I think, existing invasive species on properties right now. Again, there's really nothing in the code. I will just say, when we have site plans come in this chapter 28, there are principles which are xeriscape principles. And so this particular section of the code encourages xeriscape principles, which is using native species, using plants that can tolerate a limited amount of water, right? So those are all, these things are taken into consideration when we review the landscape plan.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Great. So Mayor, I think we have 2 parts. If I could just say, one is the removal. I mean, it's common sense. If we're paying for streetlights, we replace them with new bulbs about 1.5 years ago, and then they don't even reach the street and they highlight the top of the tree. That's like a no-brainer, common sense. We can work on that. And then the second level would be identifying any others that may or may not be on any utility easement. But I'm just looking at getting them away from the refurbished sewer pipes, because across the street on the other side of the street from the light poles are the sewer pipes. So you're talking 20, 30 feet away are the pipes that we're repairing.
Yeah, and there's
not
no
far
reason
from the
we
roots to
can't
grow.
have a conversation with
Okay,
a homeowner and
right.
explain why it needs to go.
Sure.
And
And-
work something out with them.
Okay,
You know,
great.
We're all neighbors here.
Right. Okay.
A comment? In that
Yeah,
regard,
sure, go ahead.
in that regard, we want to avoid conflict.
Yeah,
At the same time, if we find an invasive species is in the right of way, and the homeowner likes the plant, to come in and say, well, we're taking it out, is going to cause conflict. What we might do at that point, obviously, I'm going to be a swale supporter. Maybe we can then ask the owner, I said, look, we'll put in a swale if you can allow us to take it out without any, issues. Or in the case of invasive species being on the private land, close to the right of way, that again, in exchange for us taking it out or having FDOT take it out, then we use that as an opportunity. Hey, can we also put in a swale? We've got to put in swales, and it'd be great if we could do it in a negotiated way without conflict. Just a suggestion.
the other thing is if a swale isn't appropriate there for some reason, or if there already is a swale there, what's the name of that company that gives us trees? We'll give them a
Community
tree.
greening.
Maybe we'll get a
Yes,
tree for them.
They're great.
Give them a
Sure.
tree. So there's stuff that we can do to avoid confrontation and get this stuff done. Okay, anything else on that before we move on?
No, is it possible we could make a motion to have the Natural Resources Board take this up on our
Absolutely.
behalf? So if I'd like to make a motion to have the Natural Resources Board maybe review this conversation and take up between now and the final sewer repairs, identification and possible removal of any species that are causing
Okay.
problems or future problems.
So it's identify and,
Remove those under the light poles as soon as possible, in my opinion, for common sense. Identify those that are invasive.
For the
And
sake
then,
of the
as
motion.
John said,
Restate the motion, I think.
yeah.
Sorry.
Let's get it clean enough so that we have it.
I'm sort of talky that way. So I'd like to make a motion to have the Natural Resources Board review this conversation and take up identification and possible removal of invasive species, particularly at light poles, streetlights.
Second,
I would actually suggest just amend the motion to identify, because there's nothing they can do about removing it at that point.
Absolutely.
Marshall.
Good
Identify
idea.
and
Just have them,
Thank you,
recommend.
Greg. Sure.
just have them identify it for
Sure,
sure.
great. Thank you very much.
And then I'll second it.
Perfect.
okay, good. Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, thank you.
Aye.
Well done. Okay, the last item on the agenda is the commission meeting minutes of December the 1st. And they were attached. Does anybody have any comments on it, corrections, adjustments, anything missing? Once,
Nope.
twice,
Perfect.
well done. Okay.
Great job.
Need a motion to accept? Whoops,
Oh,
go ahead. Page,
Under resolution number 20-023, red that says this.
I don't think your speaker's on. Your speaker. Turn it on. Your microphone.
Yeah, it was 20-023. It says this item was moved to item 10AA. If you look at the first line, it says a resolution of the town commission. That seems redundant.
Yeah, we got too many of the towns.
Yes.
We pulled that from the resolution, but we'll take it off.
Okay,
That was the only thing I found.
that was it. Okay, entertain a motion to accept it, or as is, with that one adjustment.
I move that we accept the minutes of December 1st as corrected.
Okay,
Seconded.
all in favor?
aye.
Okay, move on to town commission comments. Start with John.
I think, just to repeat, it's the current prices that the people of Highland Beach are looking towards us is to ensure that we communicate the plans for vaccinations as quickly, as effectively as possible, because there's, again, a lot of concern about it. That is top of mind right now. That's all I have.
Okay, Evelyn?
I echo what John just said. Really, it's, everyone is worried about getting a vaccination. There are too few shots available, and they're all concerned about where to go and how to do it. So as much information as we can give on that, I think people will appreciate that. And yeah, put it on the website. Any information that we find out, put it on the website.
Okay, Peggy?
Yes, sir, thank you. I just got a text from a resident that the Lake Worth Park, John Prince Park is opening for vaccines immediately. Call the Florida Department of Health or go on their site for emails, to email and sign up.
75 and above.
I didn't get that detail. I just got a text from a resident who knew they were trying to be helpful, knowing that we're sitting up here talking. And then I had two updates. The amazing legislative session for the League of Cities a week ago Thursday. Dr. Lena Alonso presented the fact, this was 12 days ago now. I attended 4 hours on a folding chair, 6 feet apart. What it is every state representative and state senator from Palm Beach County was in attendance, with the exception of 2 who couldn't make it. And the topic of the day, of course, were the vaccines. This is before. We've made some progress now since then. The supply chain is the problem. Everyone agreed. There was discussion among everyone. Representative Caruso brought up that there were some vaccines possibly being held back, and everyone was working on getting those moved to the forefront for the general public. And I think and then the chair, David Silvers, I think he's Central County. He committed to working hard to get this taken care of. There were probably 150 people there in the convention center. Then Dave Ehrenberg, our state attorney, spoke, and he had some very interesting notes, took notes. He said one interesting effect of COVID is that most of the sober homes have closed. And that's due to not being able to accept patients, people not traveling from out of state. And he said that he's working hard to, once they do open up, to make sure that they're the properly organized and those overseen correctly. You may be aware that the Airbnbs are still closed for South County, Southeast Florida, Dade, Broward. I think, is that right, Chief? They're still closed. I'm not sure about Martin Indian River. He is working hard on a little known but a very difficult situation for police and state attorneys where there's no restitution for stolen goods in the county, that people who are charged and found guilty of theft serve their time, but they are not required to make restitution to the person who lost the items. And he's working hard, not a non-COVID item, but he felt that was an extremely important topic. Found that interesting. He announced the investigation of Morse Life, the Western community, Western Palm Beach County, who was providing vaccines to out-of-staters without proper course of action. Dorothea Jacks provided information that she's working on a better flood damage and home value project for us for hurricane season, and that they expected tuition increases for colleges based on the struggle and difficulty of those when working at home. Just an interesting note you all might want to hear that Representative Wilhite, this is the kind of item that's brought forth, presented a bill to the county asking for Wellington to oversee the firecrackers of its community because of their numbers of horses, particularly in the polo season, and how fraught they are when they hear noises such as the firecrackers. They have in season apparently 13,000 extra horses in Wellington. And that Firecrackers, whether it's New Year's or 4th of July, are not a great thing for horses. So I just thought that I would share that sort of interesting topic you hear there. Lastly, Indian River, which the Riviera Beach is the end of the Indian River complex, which starting up by Cape Canaveral, that it's got 162.4 miles of canals in the Indian River Lagoon. They're attempting to really make an impact on cleaning up. There are people who actually go to the hospital in those counties and they ask if they've been injured or have a problem. Were you in the water recently? In terms of picking up unwelcome visitors in the form of bacteria. So that was interesting. And my second item of the report is the appropriations, which we'll have completed this week. And I provided it thanks to Teresa and Manelda helping out quite a bit. Representative Caruso will be taking back the two appropriations as we discussed earlier, and Marshall and I spoke about it. The one that we needed assistance on is the swales, because the state, though we're going to have a shortage of funds for extra projects, we do have a better chance, having pitched them in the past and not been able to acquire appropriations. We have a better chance coming back again. So he wishes to pitch them both again. As for the crosswalks portion, it would be the crossings items that we did not include. The paint, we're not sure about the embedded lights. I'll work with Marshall and the representative on that. But a point that Marshall made, which is excellent, for about $60,000, we can request an appropriation to light up the area. Is that right, Marshall? Underneath the crossings, which would, with a special LED lighting that would make the area easier to see for the crossing. Is that right, Marshall? Would you like to extrapolate on that?
Yes, works. Yeah, so basically there's an attachment that you can put on top. So when you activate the pedestrian signals, it lights up the entire crosswalk. So at night, the whole thing would be like you're under a street light as you cross, and then it turns off after. So there's an option there that we could, rather than the embedded lights, because we won't be losing them. So it's another option to ask And maybe it's a smaller amount that might draw their attention and support.
So we'll be asking for that, which for 60,000 isn't a massive amount. And for the swales, I included here both pictures I'd posted before and then the swale photos from our drainage report and past reports. Again, I attended these seminars back in 2015 and onward, but you'll see that's a photo I took of a guy who ran off the road and had somewhere to go. That was in front, just south of Bellito entrance. This is another swale where you'll see there's just a ditch, a bit of a pitch. Underneath that is just the soil and the grass. There's not, as some swales, if they're built, they might put in levels of rocks or sand to also enhance drainage. But this is just a dip in the grassy area to allow the water to accumulate and then run off. You don't often see those sidewalks covered in water because of these swales. This is south of Bellito Drive going towards Doug's buildings. And when we had the builder in here 2 meetings ago, what the builders seem to do is fill in those swales with gravel, which makes sense because they have to access the lot for their trucks and everything. CBS deliveries, roof trusses. And so it makes sense, but it would be a simple thing to remove as much of the gravel and sand as they could afterwards. And where there's not a driveway, reconfigure the swale in a fashion so that it does reduce the water content on the sidewalk, because the homeowner's not going to want their sidewalks flooded anyway. It's a win-win. So that would be my personal suggestion for that going forward. But then I did include in the report these other photos. This was an older photo, nice car there. An older, is this our town, Marshall? That's not us, right. So these are other swale improvements that were made elsewhere in the state from our past drainage studies of 015, 016, where it can be a simple indentation in the side of the road, particularly for A1A, the east side where there is the hilly areas that the homes are built on, and then they just naturally, the water runs right into the roadway. We've all discussed this many times. But if we could do a French drain there, a swale, and whether we do the sand and gravel and rocks. There are also the plantings, if you move to the next slide. Teresa, is she running it? 2 forward. Oh, that's a nice deep swale. Well, there we have a concrete runoff bed also to enhance it. There we have plantings in the middle of it. There are plants that can be included to make it look a little less just boring or plain, that also can enhance with their root system the water drainage. Again, as Ingrid was saying, these need to be native plants that are identified as such. And there's an even more complex with, is that a French drain? Is that called a French drain in the center, Marshall? It's not really a French drain, is it? What would that be? Can you just do a play-by-play here?
That is a rain garden,
Oh,
but you
thank
have it, or a bio. So the picture says, what is a bio? So that's-
Bioswale, there we go.
But that's because it's more rectangular in shape. That's more like a rain garden. And usually they'll have like a bio infiltration system in the center or a catch basin to do it. But those are other options that could.
Okay,
um,
got it. Now, the Marshall and I discussed this, of course, but with the appropriations, wanting to put forward some matching funds will be tricky. And so we would ask for less than the 700,000 we asked for in the past for the swale repairs. Representative Cruz to say if we have matching funds, that would be a big help. And then possibly we could work with the single family homeowners to tweak the matching funds in their area, since FDOT claims or has claimed in the past, they will not repair homes in front of single family homes from a quirk in the law from many years ago. So that's an update for you all. Is there anything else, Marshall? I think that's about it. And we'll keep you posted from there.
Okay.
The session starts in Tallahassee, March 3rd, 2nd, and we'll just cross our fingers. And the better COVID is handled, the more money we'll have for the environment, swales, crosswalks, and so forth.
Great. Thank you.
Swale supporter. That was the word of the day. I'm excited to see your t-shirt design and I will buy one. End of report.
No, the second one is Rain garden.
I think it's swell.
I think it's swell.
Okay, I have nothing to report. Thank you all. On to Marshall. Oh, actually, on to Glenn, then Marshall. I can't hear you, Glenn.
There we go. No real report. You guys have covered a lot of ground today, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Stay safe. Get those COVID shots.
Yep, thank you, sir. Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of commendations I'd like to state. One
That's
to
what happens when you get old.
Sergeant Schursty, Officer Wentz, DeBruni, and Reed for their hard work on December 22nd, apprehending those two suspects and getting and recovering the firearm as part of that event. Good police work. They really stepped up, and it was good to see our our newest officers engaged in that. So it's a good training for them, and good work on their part. And also to Detective Fernandez for helping Mr. Woods with a very broad search and request and just doing exemplary customer service, going above and beyond. So kudos to the officers for keeping everything safe and keeping our customer service levels up. I hear you on the COVID vaccine. We will continue to battle, wrestle, commandeer, whatever is necessary to get vaccines. It's the competition's strong. So we're working on that, and hopefully our display of success last week, not only with us, but in other adjacent communities that showed this decentralized closed pod system actually is the best possible way to get things out, rather than what I suspect we might see, which is a large centralized push where we're going to have seniors traveling all over the county trying to find stuff. Not really ideal, but it could be what we see. But again, we are at a local level advocating for that decentralized system. They're in place. We were successful. There was no problems. It was like a working clock. It was perfect. Everything went as anticipated and logistically planned for. I don't know why they wouldn't use our model, but stranger things have happened. But it is on top of our mind. We have been getting folks signing up for our email list. I will, please help me communicate that when you see neighbors, whatever it takes to get people to sign up for that. Because when information comes in, we're going to keep pumping it out there. And we saw how those windows of opportunity shrink quickly. So it's really our best means to get it to everybody. So get us those names to the list. Again, we're going to send out a postcard to tell everybody to sign up for those lists. We continue to beat that drum over and over again because with the event that we had, that's how you were able to sign up, was being on our email list. So continue to do that. Again, COVID is top of my mind, top of Chief's mind, along with other community safety and health issues. So that's where we're focused right now, and everything else is coming into place. So thank you.
Marshall? Oh, sorry.
Questions?
Yes, sir, I had a question. Would it be any help to have the mayors of our nearby cities and our mayor, or even the entire commissions, draft a joint letter to our elected officials and say, we need help? You do Boca, Boynton, Delray, us, Ocean Ridge. Would that be of any help? Sometimes I think that sometimes helps.
It
Give it
never
to
hurts. An
everyone.
extra letter.
Give it to Ted Deutsch, national.
I don't
and
want
state.
to editorialize my comments on the process to date. I don't know if that would always be fair. I think some minds have been made up regardless of what we write. So we're really working a different angle to try to get them to understand and come to our thinking. And maybe that is a good method. It worked was that last week? There was a meeting where that kind of worked, but it was with a commissioner, but he still circled back to the county health district. So
We had a meeting just last week with the Southern mayors, Weinroth and Dr. Alonso. So, I mean, she's got the message for sure. Okay.
We're hitting that drum hard, especially at the local level, that we are prepared. We can do it. I mean, I'm a little beside myself that they don't see the value of that. I think the governor does, but the governor sees decentralization differently when you're sitting in Tallahassee than maybe when you're sitting in West Palm. So he's looking to the retail outlets that are, set up to handle the volume. It's just getting we're all wrestling over a small number of vaccines at the moment.
I think the key issue in terms of the distribution of the limited quantities of vaccine is the move to Publix. That's going to eat up a lot of vaccine. I mean, even if each Publix only gets 25, as soon as 20 of them get it, boom, there goes the quantity. I think that it's my guess. The Palm Beach Publix, it was just announced that Palm Beach is one of the counties that's going to get them. But as soon as you add a few of them, now I don't know that every Publix gets it. I don't know how many, but that's going to eat up a lot.
All of them.
quantity. If it's all of
The
them,
governor said all of them.
okay.
So I don't know how he's going to do, like you said, you're cutting a piece of pie in a bunch of smaller pieces. It's tough to,
Yes, so that's going to significantly affect our ability to get even 50 or 100 here. But, we're part of the Delray allotment. So as long as Delray gets, we'll get some. That's it. Okay, thank you, everybody, for your attention. It's a good meeting. We will adjourn at 3:52.
Wow.